On a deployed aircraft carrier, 5,000 sailors live stacked on top of each other in metal racks inside berthing compartments that hold 60 people. The racks are 6 feet long and 2 feet wide, with a thin curtain as the only privacy. The noise never stops. Some sailors go weeks without seeing sunlight. But one person on that ship lives in a private cabin, with a personal bathroom and meals brought directly to him by staff. One person commands every sailor, fighter jet, nuclear reactor, and weapon on this $13 billion warship in the middle of the ocean. And that person, the aircraft carrier captain. He answers for every mistake, accident, and decision made by 5,000 people on a floating military city. And what his life actually looks like will surprise you. Before we talk about the captain's quarters, you need to understand what he is commanding. A Nimitz-class aircraft carrier is over 1,000 feet long, longer than the Empire State Building is tall. It weighs more than 100,000 tons and runs on 2 nuclear reactors, generating 260,000 shaft horsepower, enough power to run a mid-sized American city. On the flight deck, fighter jets launch off steam catapults at 165 miles per hour in under 3 seconds, around the clock. Below that flight deck, 5,000 people operate a machine that never shuts down. Engineers monitor nuclear reactors. Doctors run a full hospital. Mechanics service 70 aircraft. Intelligence officers analyze threats. Navigation teams plot courses across thousands of miles. Weapons specialists handle live ordnance. Every operation runs simultaneously, and every department ultimately answers to one person. The carrier is a floating airbase, nuclear power plant, and weapons platform operating together. Flight operations run 12 hours every day, sometimes longer. Jets launch and recover in timed cycles. Maintenance happens between launches. Fueling never stops. Through all of this, the captain tracks every detail, approves every major decision, and carries legal responsibility for everything that happens. If a sailor makes a mistake, the captain answers. If an aircraft crashes, the captain answers. If the ship runs aground, the captain's career ends. Once you see how this officer actually lives, it will reframe everything you thought you knew about rank and privilege. Now let's talk about where the captain actually lives. And the reality is nothing like what most people imagine. An enlisted sailor sleeps in a berthing compartment shared with 60 other people. The rack is a metal bunk stacked 3 high, with a 3-inch mattress, a small light, and a curtain. That curtain is the only privacy for months. Storage is a narrow locker under the bunk. The noise never stops. The captain has 2 cabins. The first is the in-port cabin, the main living space, at roughly 200 to 350 square feet. A private bedroom, a sitting area that doubles as an office, a desk, and a bathroom. Compared to a hotel room, it is modest. But compared to the rest of the ship, it is the most private space that exists. The second cabin is the sea cabin, sitting directly next to the bridge, barely larger than a closet. Just a bed, a desk, and a basic toilet. When something happens at night, an emergency, a navigation problem, a threat, the captain must reach the bridge in under 30 seconds. The sea cabin exists, so the captain never wastes a second getting back to work. The captain also eats separately. Officers eat in the wardroom, a formal dining room with tablecloths and silverware. The captain does not eat there. Meals are brought to the cabin by a steward assigned to manage the captain's quarters. This is not about ego, it is about command structure. If the captain ate with officers every day, casual conversations would blur the line between command and subordinates. On a warship, that line cannot blur. So the captain eats alone, works alone, sleeps in the most isolated space on a ship filled with thousands of people. That isolation is not optional, because the private cabin does not reduce the weight of commanding 5,000 people at sea. Most people see the authority. Very few see the isolation that comes with it. Here is what most people never think about when they picture this job. Nobody walks into this job. The officer who commands a nuclear aircraft carrier has spent 25 to 30 years in the Navy earning that moment. It starts with officer training, then flight school, a pipeline that takes over a year, and washes out a significant percentage of candidates. From there, the officer builds a career across multiple deployments, flying combat missions, leading fighter squadrons, and serving aboard carriers in junior roles. Around the 15-year mark, if selected, they take command of their first squadron. If they succeed, they move to shore assignments and eventually to consideration for executive officer on a carrier. The executive officer runs daily operations. Only after serving as executive officer does an officer become eligible for carrier command, and even then selection is brutal. Every year, hundreds of qualified captains are reviewed. A handful are chosen. Performance reports going back 25 years are examined. 1-week tour can permanently end the path to carrier command. Those selected must complete nuclear power training at Naval Nuclear Power School in South Carolina, even if they have never worked with reactors. They must understand nuclear propulsion at a deep technical level because they will be legally responsible for those reactors. By the time a captain steps aboard and hears, "Captain on the bridge," for the first time, decades of service stand behind that moment. And the moment they take command, something else happens that most people never consider. The captain's day starts before the crew wakes up. Operational briefings, weather reports, navigation updates, flight schedules, safety reviews, all before sunrise. Once flight operations begin, the rhythm continues for 12 hours or more. Aircraft launch every 90 minutes. Between launches, jets move across the flight deck. Fuel trucks roll. Weapons load. The captain tracks all of it. The captain also walks the ship. This is not symbolic. A carrier captain who only sits in the cabin or on the bridge loses touch with 5,000 people living under sustained stress. The walks keep the captain connected to morale, to problems that have not reached official reports, to the sailors doing the work that makes everything else possible. Throughout the day, the captain meets with department heads and coordinates with the admiral commanding the strike group. But none of that is what truly defines this command. The captain must remain available at all hours. Emergencies do not wait. Navigation changes happen suddenly. Equipment fails without warning. Threats can appear at any moment. Flight operations often run through the night. When they do, the captain is there. One former carrier captain described it this way: "The job is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the entire command tour. Command never sleeps. Not at dinner, not at midnight, not on Christmas. And because command requires authority, the captain cannot become too close to subordinates. Leadership demands emotional distance. So even surrounded by thousands of people, the captain is the most alone person aboard the ship. An aircraft carrier is more than a warship. It is a symbol of American military power. When a carrier strike group moves into a region, governments take notice. The ship's presence sends a message without a shot being fired. The captain represents the United States every day at sea. The private cabin, the separate meals, the personal steward, all of it exists because the officer carrying ultimate responsibility cannot afford distractions. Command authority follows the captain every hour. There is no shift change. There is no time off. The captain is responsible for every failure aboard that ship, because in the middle of the ocean, thousands of lives depend on a single man. And while 5,000 sailors share the heavy burden of operations, the captain carries the heaviest burden of all: absolute, unyielding isolation. What looks like luxury from the outside is the weight of leadership carried every single day at sea. The private space is not a reward. It is the cost of absolute responsibility. And that responsibility never leaves.